So perhaps instead of saying these things about your children that are directly negative or lies, it's just a lack of support, a lack of encouragement on certain areas. And you know what? That really might be their own lies they believe about themselves, their own limiting beliefs that they think, well, I know I can't do this and I couldn't have done this as a child. Therefore, my kids can't do it. Welcome back to The Donkey
and the Bee,
where men are jackasses
and women are biatches,
where we work together to build an extraordinary life.
Tune in to up your game in your marriage, entrepreneurship, and finances. Welcome back to The Donkey and the Bee. We got the donkey here, Brett, and the bee here, Laura, and we are coming at you again with some real life content today, actually.
All right, so we're talking about the lies that we tell ourselves, and man, there's been as we're kind of thinking about this, there are some lies that I believe or struggle with that I've identified in my life, some things that we have identified as kids growing up. Our parents, other people in our lives told us lies about ourselves that you take through life. And it was kind of sparked this morning going to church. Our daughter, Blake, who's 9, she's going into the kids' church, and she's like, hey, you know, one of those teachers, right? Sunday school teachers are mean. She said, and I was kind of like, what? And they're like, yeah, the teacher said I'm shy. And I was kind of upset by this. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, you're a little on the quiet side when you meet new people, but that has nothing to do with telling her she's shy, right? She's literally like internalizing this, and it's a lie that she was told that she's shy that I am afraid she's going to believe, right? So we're like battling this thing, and we specifically, you know, she's very quiet, so we've specifically not used the word shy around her, right? Like when she gets around her friends, I think she's loud as crap, but she's just very quiet when she meets new people. And I don't want other people telling her or telling anyone lies about themselves on potentially things that they're working on in life.
Yeah, this was something that really got me a little upset walking to church, because it has been multiple times that people have told her that she's shy. And so I think when multiple people on many different occasions tell you something specifically, especially if it's the same words, you are shy. It's almost like you're programming this little individual mind to believe that. And so I think we've all come across circumstances when we're kids that have adults have told us certain things about ourselves, which I think in most cases aren't even true. But we grow up in adolescence, and then we grow up in our early 20s and maybe in our 30s and 40s still believing that and still living our lives in a way that is almost making that limiting belief come true.
Yeah. Well, what were some of the things that you were told as a kid?
So one of the things I was told as a kid is that I talked too much. I got in trouble on many occasions in like kindergarten, first, second grade. My mom would have to come in and have conferences with the teachers because I would talk too much. I literally was just like, the teacher was talking and I'd be like, hey, what's going on? Like to my neighbor. So I talk too much, and that I'm too much, meaning like maybe too loud.
You're overwhelming.
And so those were the major 2 things that I was told as a kid. And I think it still carries over to me as an adult because I'm aware of it. I'm very aware that I am very outgoing. I'm very social. I like to laugh. I'm very loud.
Yeah, we can find you in Target. Just if you're looking for Laura and you're in Target, just be quiet for like 5 seconds and you'll hear her laugh somewhere.
You're welcome.
In this 1 acre facility,
yes,
you'll be able to find her.
I'm bringing you joy. Exactly.
Yeah.
See, he's putting a limiting. Do you guys hear this? He's putting a limiting belief in me right now.
I just have to cover my ears sometimes. You're loud.
See, he just said it. He just said I'm loud. Hey, you know what? I think I've embraced it. And I think that as an adult kind of working through it, realizing that a lot of times when people tell you certain things as a child, that you're this way or you're that way, is actually your superpower that hasn't been honed in on. And I think Brett calls it potential energy. And so, you know, when people maybe say Blake is shy, I think that she's quiet maybe. And I think that's actually kind of a good thing, because God did give us 1 mouth and 2 ears for a reason. So maybe she's just going to be a great listener. She'll be a great listener to her friends, to her spouse, to whomever it is in the future, right? And so I think that that's actually might be a superpower for her. She just has to learn to develop that and hone in on that. And so for me example, people saying that I talk too much or that I'm too loud, I think it's actually my superpower. I'm really good at connecting with people and talking to whomever. And if I see someone that like did something really sweet or kind to somebody else, I go up and tell them like, wow, that meant a lot to me. So I feel like I can make a difference in people's lives because of that. And so I don't know. I think that it wasn't really a limiting belief for me. It was almost like an eye-opening experience to the strength that I have.
Mm-hmm. But now you're mature, right? And you've spent a lot of time on this. And I know, as you were going through your 20s and when we were first married, you struggled with this idea and we had lots of conversations about it. So when you were younger, when you were a kid and teenager, was this something that was negative in your mind?
Yeah, I think it was negative as a teenager that if I'd laugh too loud, that people would look at me and it was like, oh, okay, I need to just be a little more quiet. Where now I'm just like, whatever, I'll laugh as loud as I want. You want to look at me? Who cares? So I think it's more of a maturity thing. And I think in my teens, I think any teenager, when they're going through that hard phase, is going to think that it's embarrassing or it's a negative thing. But I guess I kind of want to throw that question back at you. What was something that other people told you when you were a child as far as limiting beliefs?
So it's interesting because I can specifically remember this one instance. So you can, by that, it was 30 years ago or so, right? You can see like the power that was in this moment. And so it was something that one of my parents said to me, and we were talking about me playing baseball, and I was really bad at like Little League when I was like 8 to 10 years old, right? And one of them said, Brett, you can't drag a rake in baseball. Meaning like I wasn't good enough to even like rake, before or after the game on the infield.
Wow, that's harsh.
It was pretty cold-blooded.
It's kind of funny when that
but nonetheless, like it still stings, right? Like I'm still carrying this thing with me. And so that's just one example, but there was things told to me that, I just ultimately I'm not good enough. And it was, in that instance directed at sports. Granted, I was terrible at Little League baseball. But that was something that I carried that I'm just not good enough on some of these things. And I was really bad at school and academics up until probably like 16 or something. Like, I don't know, I think I just, going through puberty and stuff, you kind of just mature and physically, mentally, like I became really good at things. But up until that point, I believe like I sucked at a lot of things. I just wasn't very gifted at things. Physically, sports, mentally, academics, like all of the above. And I think those beliefs drove my younger adolescence until I really broke through it and started getting results in school, in sports, socially. And then my parents, I guess, kind of came on board with that and were more encouraging. So that was something that if it didn't change, right, like I probably would have carried those lies about me into adulthood.
What I think is interesting about this topic is that in most cases, the beliefs that you carry or the lies that you carry from being a child to adolescence to adult may not be vocally directed at you. They can be shown to you through adults' actions or lack of actions.
So what I'm hearing you say is instead of them saying these things to you, they may have been showing you these things, right? It's kind of showing by example instead of speaking, but it was negative examples that we're talking about. So perhaps instead of saying these things about your children that are directly negative or lies, it's just a lack of support, a lack of encouragement on certain areas. And you know what? That really might be their own lies they believe about themselves, their own limiting beliefs that they think, well, I know I can't do this and I couldn't have done this as a child. Therefore, my kids can't do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And we've been very proactive with this with our kids from the very beginning, right? Where, they started their own business at 4 and 6 years old. They just bought their first rental property. They set their own alarm every day. They make their own lunch every day, right? Like they're doing their own laundry right now. Like we have said, you can do these things. And when they push back and say, no, most kids don't do that. I don't care that most kids do that. I know you are capable of doing it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that you can be very proactive with these things in showing and in telling your kids.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of a random example, but I'm kind of random sometimes. One thing that really, really just irks me is when females put down other females. And so I'm very adamant about showing the girls that, when you encourage other people, when you encourage others around you, like you win and they win. And so instead of verbally telling them, hey, you need to be, kind and loving toward other women, I usually go above and beyond when we're together with the girls and I see other women, kind of going out of my way to encourage other women in front of them, so that it's not just me telling them, hey, like, don't gossip or don't talk behind people's back. Like, let's encourage other people. And so they see it all the time. And that's something that I really want to ingrain in them, because, man, it bothers me when there's such like I have to be better than this other person, or I have to tear this person down because they're more successful than me. That's just, I don't know, irks my skin. So I'm very adamant about showing it and not just talking about it.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to what you said was your superpower of just striking up relationships and conversations with people, right?
Yeah.
There's been so many times where we're in an elevator at a hotel or somewhere, right? Where some woman walks in and then it's like that awkward, like everyone's in the elevator being quiet. And then you're like, oh, I got to say something to this lady, right? Like, you look so beautiful today, or your dress or your hair, right? Like, and a lot of times they're like, is she serious? Okay, yeah, I guess she's being serious. Like, and it's so...
Brett gets awkward. Yeah, it's fun.
Nah, well, and nonetheless, it is your potential energy. It's your power there that you have embraced this lie that you were told about being when you were a kid, about being too much, right? And you are using that to your advantage and fighting through this awkwardness. And it's been, I know, something that you have specifically practiced as a skill, right? To how do I approach people and how do I compliment people and how do I strike up conversations without being awkward and overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting a little personal here.
Okay.
What are the lies that you currently tell yourself?
Oh, we're getting deep here. So I think it relates to success, whether it's business success or financial success. I am fighting this lie for my whole business life. Is that if I'm too successful, if I make too much money, then my either friends or family are going to judge me, or they're going to distance themselves from me, or think that Brett's changed. He's not that person anymore. And probably because when I just did mature and started our own business and started bettering ourselves, we pulled away from our like old friend group, like high school and college friend group, right? Like there was a separation there. And I think maybe that stems, from this belief stems from that, right? Like other people will distance themselves from me because, Brett's too focused on, success or growth or whatever it is now. Mm. So I think that's something that I constantly am fighting against, because I do want to continue to grow my business and grow in lots of different ways. But as I do that, I think I am perhaps distancing myself by default from people who are not doing that. And I think that is something that I have to fight against, to say, no, you know what? It doesn't matter. They're going to run their race and I'm going to run my race. And it doesn't really matter, where their journey takes them. I should really only focus on my own journey. So what are some of the things that you see other adults, the lies that they tell themselves, their own limiting beliefs?
I think I see this every day. Being a female, there's different lies that are told than if you're male. Granted, I do think some of them overlap, but I think a lot of the female lies are about your appearance, and I think the male lies are about your success or money or business or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And so since I'm around a lot of females a lot, I think the main thing is, I'm too fat, I can't do that, or I'm too short, or I'm too tall, or I'm not pretty enough, or it's always having to do with their physical appearance or their lack of quote unquote physical capability to do something because of their size. So I would say that's probably the most prevalent lie that I hear. And I also, like I say, from coming from the male perspective, I do hear a lot of, well, I've worked in this industry for 15 years. I don't want to start over. What am I going to do? I'm just stuck in this job anyways. Like, why would I start over? And so that's a lie that I think really frustrates me so much, because if you're unhappy with where you're at, like, you're the magician in your life, right? You can do something different, like make the choice, take the leap of faith and go do something different if you're not happy. And so that's the one lie that I hear from a lot of men is, oh, well, I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, I can't start over now. You know, like, yes, you can. And, you know, I always say this, KFC started when he was like 60 plus years old. Like,
Yeah.
if you're only 40, you're good. Like, you're still young. So that's probably what I hear most. I don't know if you're going to say something
So
different.
you think you see people trapped in a situation of life that they are complaining about, right? Because they're vocalizing
Yes.
it in front of you, their physical state, their job, their boss, but they don't believe, right? They tell themselves that they're not good enough or they can't do it because of a certain thing. And they're going to just like grunt and bear it for the next 40 years of life or something.
Exactly. Be unhappy and then make everyone else unhappy around them because of their unhappiness. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Change it.
Yeah. Just realize that this is not true,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Just because your mind is telling you it doesn't mean it's the truth.
Yeah.
Your mind lies to you all the time.
Yeah. We tell our daughters, you don't have to believe everything you think. And you don't have to say everything you think either.
Yeah. So what I commonly see as far as other people and their limiting beliefs or the lies that they constantly tell themselves is about athletics, about getting old, actually. And, well, I guess partly because we own an assisted living and we see the very end of life. So we see people complaining about their age or saying, I can't do these things because of age. And, you know, it may be just simple things as far as walking and things when we're talking about your 90s. But it's also a lot of people who say, you know, oh, I can't do that. And I guess partly because I run long races, like marathons and ultra marathons and Ironman. And people are always like, oh, that's so cool for you, Brett. I could never do that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean I could never do that? Like, no, I'm too old for that. Like, I'm 50 years old now. And I'm like, I'm always trying to tell people when I'm running an Ironman, do you know how many like 70-year-olds are out there on this course, like doing it? Like, this is not a physical body thing. When you get to that state of like, I'm going to run or do something for 12 hours, it's like 90% mental. Like the grit and the toughness that you get at the end of life mentally is what you need. It's not when you're like, okay, there's plenty of younger people out there also, but it is a totally different skill and grit having to do some of these longer races. And there are plenty of people who are out of shape, who are running the Ironman course, who are, 70 plus years old, who are out there doing it. And I think it's just an excuse for kind of middle of life. People like to do this, oh, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s now. I don't do that stuff anymore. I don't need to go to the gym anymore. Like, no, that's BS. Like, you need to work your body, right? We see what it looks like when you're in your 90s and 100 years old. If you give up on your physical body 40, 50 years before the end of life, like, it's going to be a crap show, and the bills and everything are going to be crazy. So I think that's just one of the common things that I see. Like, people are always saying, oh, I can't do that stuff. Or probably because we go to CrossFit too. Like, oh, I can't do that. Like, there's even doctors telling people, hey, you're in your 40s now. Like, you should not do CrossFit. It's too hard on your body. It's not too hard on your body. Like, you can scale any of these weights, any of these movements. Like, that's just ignorance out there. And there's people telling a bunch of lies about this stuff and not knowing that they can actually do it.
I think it's creating a soft, sissy generation. And that is something that really makes my blood boil, is that you're creating a generation of individuals who think that sitting on their butt, having the government pay them or whatever it may be, not working hard, not overcoming failure. I mean, failure is inevitable in life. And I think that most people don't want to step into failure because of whatever reasons they think. We know we're going to fail. Literally, there's like what? 2% of your life is when you're actually winning. You fail most times.
I think it's a fantastic point, because people will say, I can't do this because I know I'm going to fail, not knowing that like 10 or 20 or 50 failures is the prerequisite for success, right? Like you have to do these things and fail in order to at some point succeed in the future. And people don't understand that shift. So they think, well, if I can't do it the first time, then I just can't do it. Like, no, you're not supposed to be able to do it the first time. Otherwise it was too easy and you should have done something harder.
Yeah. So what do you think about an activity that people can do to write down maybe some of the lies they heard as children or adolescents and just kind of like make a stock inventory on a piece of paper and work through those lies, or what would you say would be an activity people could do to realize the lies? I think that's the first step, is realizing that they're lies. And then what can they do to overcome that?
So I think it really starts by asking yourself a question. Is this true? And if I say, oh, I can't run an Ironman because I'm 52 years old. Okay, is this true? Probably not. Is it exclusively 100% in all circumstances true? I would think that's the second question, right? Or is it just, oh, in this way it's true? Because there's lots of circumstances where you can twist the lie you're telling yourself and say, yeah, that is true in that circumstance. But is it absolutely 100% true in every circumstance? Then I would ask that as a second question. And 99.9% of the times, there is a way that it is not true, right? There's multiple ways. And so if you said, okay, in this example, yes, I'm 52, is there some way that I can run an Ironman? Yeah, of course. There's people with no legs running an Ironman. You can do it. You'll be just fine. Is it going to take you a long time? Yeah. But so I would start there. Like, is this true? And is there any way that what I'm saying is false, right? Is there another way I can look at this?
Well, what I love about that is that it's an action step we can take to be aware of the lies that we've been told and believe, and then breaking them down. That's really what it is, right? And so I would encourage everyone out there to take some time, self-reflect, think about those lies that you've been told and that you've actually believed, and just do some work on yourself, right? Like, sit in those lies, sit in them, and realize that majority of them are crap. Majority of them aren't helping you succeed. They're pulling you back, and realize that you're not connected to those. Like, you're not fat. You're not sad. You're not all these things, right? You can change that. It's just your actions of what you're going to do to actually change that, right? So it's not, you don't have to sit in that and wallow in it. It's your choice ultimately.
Yeah. You got to identify them and then fight them off.
Exactly.
And not one time. It's probably over and over
Every
again
day.
until you actually subconsciously now believe it because you've reprogrammed your mind.
Thanks again for joining us on The Donkey and the Bee. Make sure you like and subscribe, and also share this episode with anyone who you think needs to get this encouragement. We'll see you on the next one.